So this is our team's final presentation. This is titled Macro Enterprises, Why HR Needs to Be a Strategic Partner. So background into the case study, Macro Enterprises manufactured carburetors and had made the decision to move its two Florida operations to Rockford, Illinois, where they were primarily headquartered. At the same time that they made the announcement to make the move from Florida to Rockford, they also received notice that their number of orders would be increasing moving forward. So in addition to the move, they also added more work staff to themselves, mainly in the manufacturing area. Now, at first, everything seemed to be okay in the initial move and hiring the new employees, but as time went on, there were some red flags that arise, which brought about a couple of different changes. Initially, Macro Enterprises' sort of decision-making outflow started with executive management into their shift leaders into the workforce. HR was not a part of any of the strategic planning or strategic decision-making and were primarily left out of all of those meetings and conversations. Post the move from Florida to Rockford, they did hire a HR director, help with some of the issues that are arising, and it brought us in as consultants for Macro Enterprises. So as HR consultants, we conducted a number of different methods for gathering data. One method was the observation of shifts and of the leaders within Macro Enterprises. We also looked at the day-to-day and the transition of the manufacturing shifts. We also observed the work environment. We conducted a series of interviews and a series of feedback surveys. Now, each one of these methods does have its own benefits and drawbacks, which is why we decided to implement multiple. We wanted to make sure we got a full picture of what was really going on within the organization from the top down. And so that's why multiple methods were utilized in gathering our data. Now, through our observations, there were numerous things that we identified that do raise some red flags within Macro Enterprises. Big one is there is definitely a lack of employee morale. There is a lack of continuity between the two working manufacturing shifts. There does seem to be difference in work ethic across those shifts as well. There's a gross lack of proper training. And then also this is compounded by the fact that the HR director was brought in after the merger. To bring the examples of the lack of morale, the second shift, which is primarily made up of Florida employees, definitely feels shorted as they seem to have lost their tenure. A lot of them were working first shift due to their tenure, which they no longer possess here. There definitely is no communication between first shift and second shift, which is so mainly between the Rockford shift and Florida shift. This definitely creates some of the areas of defects that we were seeing within the manufacturing. There's no communication between machine outages or anything of that nature. The way both shifts work is very different from one another in how they utilize one another and how they utilize the SOPs, which was another thing that was brought to light. There was definitely a lack of SOPs for each machine, and where there was one, it seemed to have not really matter in the slightest, which also goes into lack of proper training. It doesn't look like there's a uniform training for how a certain task should be done, or even how to operate a machine if it is indeed in need of maintenance. Another contributor to the lack of morale is that there is a definite divide between management and the workforce. Just even on the frontline level, it seems like the foremans have been switched. The Florida foreman is now primarily managing the Rockford employees and vice versa. That's definitely created tension between the foreman and those employees as well. In addition to that, there's definitely just a lack of communication and work environment between what we would consider executive management and then the actual frontline workforce. Not only in work conditions, but also just in interaction altogether. In addition to what also contributed to lack of morale for the Florida employees, the set-aside lockers for personal items seems to be primarily taken up by the first shift Rockford employees, leaving no room for the Florida employees. This contributes to them feeling more like second-class employees. So with all this, what is the business impact to macro enterprises? Well, the big one is the manufacturing defects centered around mainly the bolt drivers and the improper calibration of the bolt drivers, compounded by SOPs not being followed correctly. This is leading to work products being returned and creating a lack of consistency in the final product. What this has led to is an increased cost in manufacturing for macro enterprises, and then a drop in company reputation as well, which is critical as this is a regional company that really thrives on its reputation within the community and amongst those who are purchasing its products. So going through all of that, the background, our findings, our final recommendation is that HR does need to become a strategic partner. Now, there are definitely a few things HR will need to do in order to accomplish this. Your human resources department, plays a vital, crucial role in personal recruiting, performance appraisal, and orientation. Accordingly, the company's HR function sets the strategic tone and also provides the necessary specialized knowledge and direction to an organization. For HR to effectively become a strategic partner, it must understand the following vital things of this organization. HR should ensure that it understands the firm's core business. It should know that its work starts with the company's business and not HR. The HR strategic partner within the business should demonstrate support to the firm's strategies and align itself with those set strategies. Additionally, HR strategic partnership between the executives, leadership, and HR must understand the knowledge of the business, support the strategy, and have the ability to transform every activity to strategic objectives. So with that being said, how does HR become a strategic partner within micro enterprises? First, developing leaders. The core value of HR is ensuring it develops leaders with great values and high competency in terms of attaining the company's anticipated goals and objectives. The partnership will identify key components for development known as transition points. These transition points will provide a distinctive opportunity for the firm to analyze and review every employee's job experience, thus leading to creating developmental plans. By leveraging the essential transformative points, macro enterprises will maximize its developmental opportunities, leading to enhancement of its leadership development capabilities. HR plays an important role in recruiting and retaining talented employees. As noted earlier, the company has seen a large turnover in its employee and talent pool. As is common knowledge, it is much more expensive to hire and train a new employee than it is to retain that employee. So the retention and development of employees is vital in order for macro enterprises to succeed in its current market. We are also recommending that HR creates and develops a functional incentive program. At the moment, there is no incentive program for any of the employees who work within manufacturing. The lack of incentive program is partially responsible for creating the current work culture, where employees don't seem to care about the quality of work that they are producing, as there really is no true incentive for doing the proper job. In creating the incentive program, we also help create metrics and standards that employees must meet in order to be eligible for the incentive program and also just for their current job performance. We also recommend looking into an employee performance evaluation system in the future. We strongly feel that if our recommendation is followed, not only would employee morale and retention increase, but the quality of work at macro enterprises would increase as well, leading to better cost effectiveness and future growth of the organization. Thank you.